We are live and recording with a cat butt because that is the way of the world and how timing should always work with a cat and a fuzzy creature. But hello, everyone. Thank you so very, very, very much for joining us. Oh no, there's an echo all of a sudden. Or am I the only one hearing the echo?
No, I'm hearing it.
So this is Doodle. She will eat everything in sight.
So cute.
She will try to eat things that she shouldn't eat.
She is a kitty cat indeed. Well, everyone, while Richard is getting headphones, I'm going to go ahead and give you ye old spiel and the rundown of everything. But it is my pleasure and treat because today with Cassandra Khaw, we are celebrating the very so beautiful Nothing But Blackened Teeth. Let me get you a close-up of this fabulous cover. And Nothing But Blackened Teeth is a great horror gothic Japanese novella, Japanese-inspired novella with all kinds of amazing monsters and spooky things in it. And actually our store manager, Kelly, read it and really, really liked it a lot. So it gets 2 thumbs way up from us. And then joining Cassandra in conversation is going to be Richard Kadrey, which he is known for his, I almost said Slim Man. I was like, my brain totally just scrambled on that. The Sandman Slim series, as well as this was one of his new books that came out, The Grand Dark, which also, look at these covers. I just have to do like a cover brag of like.
Oh, they match so well.
Right? I know. We did not plan the color coordination, but there it is. And so you guys are in for a treat. And before I pass it off, though, to Richard, some house rules, everyone. We have ye old chat section over to the right-hand side. Hello to everyone. Keep the comments coming. If you look down below, there'll be a beautiful button that says Ask a Question. Oh, I love that you're pointing with me. This is like the best ever. And then, as that would imply, that is where you ask a question. The best part about events are that you get to interact with the authors, and you get to be like, tell us, oh mysterious author brain, from whence did this come? And ask all of the questions and whatever you would like to. And then most importantly is that tomorrow on the 19th, this beautiful book is going to be out in the world. So if you would like to purchase it, as well as get a really awesome pop socket that's really cool, make sure you click the purchase book button down below and we'll have all the info for you there. Now, on that note, before I pass it off though, Richard, do you wish to speak so we see if there's an echo or not?
Yeah, how does that sound?
Oh, perfect.
Not like your throat.
Okay, I'm not going to jinx it. I'm not going to jinx it or say anything else. And I will see you all at the end of the event.
Right. Bye-bye. Hello.
Oh, I'm very glad that you're...
Book.
Oh, God. I am so terrified. Does it ever stop being scary? I know you've got, 15 books out now?
A bunch. And it's always weird the day before. It's you feel insane.
Yeah, I'm kind of scrabbling at the walls going, I want everyone to read it. I want nobody to read it. I would like people to have it. No one buy it. And it's just this endless loop. And every single book before that has been the exact same endless loop.
But it's been getting amazing reviews.
It has. And there is a lot of pressure. In a weird way, the reviews are easier to take. It's all the love that I've been getting from booksellers and librarians and everyone else, and like even my marketing team. And I'm just sitting there going, "Oh, I hope I don't disappoint anybody. These are wonderful people."
Oh, you're going to do fine. But it's interesting you mentioned the booksellers, the marketing team. Those are sort of the invisible, unsung heroes of this whole process.
They really are. With this book in particular, and as well as the all-consuming world, really, I've really gotten to see how much work that they put in. And booksellers and librarians and everyone else has been on the forefront of my mind, especially with all the stuff that's been happening with Netflix and like Hollywood, the way they mistreat those that they regard as like off camera and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I'm just incredibly grateful and hoping I will be able to repay people somehow one day.
Yeah, the promotional people have done an amazing job with the book. I mean,
Oh my God, they have. I will admit that I'm sometimes terrified when my publicist emails me. I'm like, oh no, Giselle has another thing for me to do. And I know it's a good thing, but I'm also like, she's on top of everything. I should talk about the book itself instead of squeaking about all the nice people around me.
yeah, I remember reading a draft of this a long time. I think when you just finished it.
Mm.
And it really hit me back then. I had a feeling it was going to be something big.
Aw.
And then I think the combination of that story with that amazing cover is
The cover.
really catching people.
God, that cover too. If there's anyone out there who has no idea who the cover artist is yet, it's Sam Araya, and I
Do you know it?
worshipped his work for ages and ages and ages. When Nightfire asked me if there was anyone I wanted as a cover artist, I basically wrote all caps Sam Araya for 6 emails in a row, just going, please him. And they got him for me for the cover, and I don't know if anyone's like really looked in depth at it, but there's just so much motion to it, even though it's a static image, and there's kind of this delicate elegance to it. He could have gone gory, he could have gone weird, but no, it's just unsettling in the most beautiful way. I love it so, so much.
Yeah, she's kind of smeared across the coverage. I mean, she's very detailed, but you can see this kind of unearthly motion.
Every time I look at her, I get this feeling that she's just about an attosecond from just coming off the page. Like she's about to step into the room. And it says a lot, to be able to accomplish that. So I am super lucky with the cover.
I think I agree in that feeling that she's just about to come out, which thematically works with the story itself. You want to talk a little bit about the basics of the story without, going into
spoiling?
Spoilers?
Oh, I'm so bad at pitching my book. I've done this like 600 million times now, but I'm still terrible at it. But essentially, it's the story of 5 friends going to a manor in the middle of Japan, somewhere nobody really knows where, all because 2 of them want to have a wedding in a haunted house. Now, I know it seems a little bit ridiculous, but when I was growing up, all of my peers and we were obsessed about crawling into haunted houses, haunted hospitals. If there were rumors of ghosts, we would be making expeditions there every weekend. And in a way, that's a little bit of a tribute to that past, that very poorly thought of past, because I also came from Malaysia, where all of the ghosts are very much ready to devour you if you wander into their territory.
You mentioned that this is a story set in Japan. You're Malaysian. And this is a haunted house story. Did you feel any difference with that background in writing a haunted house story? I mean, there's a lot of Western tropes. Did you feel free to play with that in some way, bringing in the mythology you grew up in?
I've been getting that question a lot, and I don't know which of the Western tropes I'm using for this. If there is any, I feel like it is completely subconscious, because all of my horror storytelling, all of my horror comes straight from home. With Nothing But Black and Tea, for example, the ghosts aren't actively malevolent, the entities that are living there. They're not strange invaders come up from hell. They're just kind of chilling. So I don't know. To talk about Western haunted house tropes is very difficult because there was never a tradition that I grew up with. And I will say that's always interesting to hear from other interviewers that they assume I grew up with that. I don't know. It feels like the West has this idea that they have ownership over horror almost, when the tradition of horror is as old as the civilizations everywhere else. And I wonder why that is.
I think it's that Western Gothic tradition that the West comes from, and we assume everything else comes from that, and anything that seems to stray from that pattern, we have to sort of look at and kind of wonder about. It's that thing of asking questions or not asking questions in the story, working with assumptions. I mean, you work with yokai and stuff, and there's a lot of Japanese language that is kind of fascinating and it draws you in. But I know people like, honestly, I'm going to say something now. People I think who are sloppy readers or people who don't trust the author have been complaining about it. I don't understand that. I think it really enriches a story to see and feel that world coming through.
First of all,
oh yeah, I know I said a bad thing, and I'm gonna lose some Twitter followers over that.
It's weird. I've gotten a few emails like that too, where people complain about the abundant usage of words that are not rooted in Germanic languages, and I never know what to do with it. Like, I see people reading books that are filled with German terms and French terms, and all everyone seems to say about that is, oh, it's so sophisticated, so European. Mm-hmm. And I think in a weird way, the West still kind of sidelines Asia. There was that article a few weeks back about the 5 weirdest vampire movies. Mm-hmm. And they named Mr. Vampire, which genuinely shocked me because that is a tentpole of like Chinese comedy horror cinema. That is an entire genre unto itself. And to see it repackaged and described as weird just kind of blew my mind, and I guess not the best way.
I thought that was really insulting, frankly, to include Mr. Vampire in a weird vampire list. I mean, it really shows, sorry, IO9, a parochial approach to these things.
I am definitely not going to say anything for reasons of, but
I just lost Twitter followers again.
It's something that, I don't know, I feel is reflective in regards to how the East and the West view horror and view demons and the supernatural. With people in the West, horror often seems to be this thing where humanity is the default state. People were here first. People were people own wherever they're standing, the house, the land, the forest, the city. And any bit of supernatural is an infringement. Mm-hmm. And that's what I always see in Western cinema. Whereas with Eastern cinema, it's almost like, look, this is a large, strange, and occasionally murderous world. Most of the time, it ignores humanity the way we ignore ants or spiders in our house. But when something skitters a little bit too close, the darkness pays attention and sometimes decides to wolf them down. Kind of like Nothing But Black and Teeth. I maintain that the apparitions there would have left everyone alone if they had not, invaded their space and decided to desecrate everything. But I'm not going to spoil too much.
Well, speaking of sort of darkness and invading spaces, there are some interesting relationships in the book. Not all of them healthy. And was that a conscious thing? And I wonder about it in terms of the characters knowing each other for so long, dragging that youthful assumptions, good or bad, with them.
It was definitely intentional. I kind of wrote that book at the tail end of some really difficult moments in my life involving a parent passing away. And old friends almost taking advantage of me, like pressing against my boundaries, overstepping boundaries, making more and more demands because they were there in my moment of grief. And it started to get me thinking how much we allow our oldest friends, somebody we know that we've known for like 5 years, 10 years, as we slowly realize they're assholes, we have this habit of making excuses for them almost. It's like, yeah, he's a little bit of a jerk, but he's my buddy. Like, he's fun to hang around with. And I think I've been circling this topic through a lot of my books before. Hammers and Bone brushes up against it as well. But in Nothing But Black and Teeth, I really wanted to examine what happens when you hang on to those relationships far, far past their expiry date. Because I think we all do that. And it takes a while before we realize not every friendship or relationship has to end in, that one person dying. Sometimes friendships have a shorter lifespan than others, and it's okay for them to be let go. And with Nothing But Black and Teeth, I want to look at what happens when you just hang on to it. When you start building excuses over excuses over excuses over excuses, and you just wrap up that pain, that poison in all of this armor of excuses and reasoning. Like, what kind of poison pours out of the psyche? Then how do we change when we're fighting to stay friends, even though we know in our hearts of hearts that we shouldn't be?
And that toxicity essentially leads to the rest of the story. I'm not going to give away things, but I don't think if this group was healthier, we would have seen quite the outcome we did.
I will say if the group was healthier, they probably would be all fine. But because they are not, yes. Well, no. They would still be there. They're young enough to be that silly. But the outcome would have been much, much different if they were healthier people who trusted in each other, who were willing to speak to each other, who... Actually, you're right. They wouldn't have been there. They would have parted ways like 5 years ago and occasionally send Facebook messages to one another going, happy birthday.
Yep.
But yeah, it's interesting. I went through all of that in my 20s. And honestly, it wasn't until I hit my 30s that the revelation came. Because I think when you're in your 20s, there's just so much pressure to build things. People keep telling you this is the time when, you have to do everything. When you hit 25, you're just going to crumble into dust. So you better rush it. You better have all the relationships. You better have all your shit together. And I think our understanding of relationships, at least in this aspect, sometimes becomes a casualty of, societal pressure.
And what we think of kindness as something that's toxic both to the other person and yourself.
Sometimes the kindest thing they can do is just say something's done and walk away.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird how society trains us to think otherwise, I feel. But the world's a really weird place.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. What is your favorite apparition? Mostly because I want an excuse to talk about mine. I need to talk about mine in every panel and interview and whatnot.
Well, you start since you already have one. I'm gonna have to think for a minute.
Damn it, that backfired. My favorite thing in the world is probably the Hantu Tetek from Malaysian legend. And translated, it simply means boob ghost. It is a specter of a woman with Herculean breasts, and she suffocates people to death with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I absolutely love that cryptid ghost, what have you, because it is such a ridiculous concept. I'm like, who came up with this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of the kitsune. I like fox. Everyone who follows me on Twitter knows I like foxes, and tricky foxes are a big favorite.
Tricky, sneaky foxes?
Tricky, sneaky foxes.
I've always loved the fox legends more than anything else. I think one of my favorites is actually a Chinese one, and it is about a fox named Daji who possesses a woman. And this woman, she's just gloriously beautiful. I can't remember if she started that way or the fox enhanced her. But she kind of wanders off and catches the king's eye. And the king falls in love with her. He's like, oh my darling, you're the first of my loves. I think he decides to elevate her to like wife and stuff. And she doesn't even stay a concubine. But she drives him crazy because no matter what he does, she will not smile. He brings her flowers, he brings her gold, he brings her food, just like resting sad face the whole time. And I think at one point he loses his temper because he's so stressed about all of it. And so it kicks a servant. And that is the exact first time that he sees her smile. And the level of cruelty just escalates up till the point, I think he sets his entire kingdom on fire to coax a smile from her. And in some legends, Daji is this horrible creature who absolutely ruins an entire civilization. But in my favorite tellings of the story, this was a tricky little fox who decided to get rid of a very evil king and his people. Anyway, I love foxes.
That's brilliant.
You're quite lovely.
A fox story. Another fox story. Or rewrote a fox story.
I did. Oh God, Alicia Fox's. I had read Mr. Fox, that old English story about a girl who marries Mr. Fox and finds out that he's actually a fox or something like that. And she gets her brothers to murder him. And that's just the end of the story. And I remember just going, no, absolutely not. And I yelled about it on Twitter for about 10 minutes and I wrote the whole story and sold it off to, I think it was the Lightspeed magazine. I think I have one more fox story that I've written about a fox and the little spirit possessing a maneki neko, and how they continue through the years unchanging until the fox falls in love with a human woman and gives up his mortality because he couldn't imagine living another epoch without her. And eventually his cat friend vanishes, going off to seek her own adventures, and they don't hear from each other for the longest time. And the fox, who got so used to mundane, banal things like mortgages and anniversaries and yearly trips, forgets completely that he was ever a fox to begin with. No, it isn't until they are very, very old that they come back together.
Oh,
and sit down and share stories one more time. I love that story. It's one of my
That's
favorite
really
ones I've
sweet.
ever written.
I think the first time I ever heard of the kitsune and what got me interested in them was when I was having dinner with a Japanese friend.
Mhm.
And at the end of the meal, she broke her chopsticks. And she made me break the chopsticks.
I
Because
don't know this tradition.
there's some version of the story where if you just throw away your chopsticks, they can become foxes, tricky foxes.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's the only time I've heard that, but she was very serious about it. So ever since then, I always break my chopsticks.
Why would you do that? You would get fox spirits instead.
I know, but they seem like mean foxes. They seem like scary foxes. Like these were malevolent foxes. I
All
think
foxes are malevolent.
well, that's true. I think I need to try a fox experiment and not do that. I'm sort of at that point where it's like, well, I've kept the foxes away for this long. Maybe I should just invite them in.
And this is how you get a city fox crawling into the apartment to hang out with aces.
Yes. Speaking of
But I
aces,
wonder-
are your and non-toxic relationships,
Yes.
are your kitties around?
Well,
To
one
show
of them
people?
showed. I think a big orange one is hiding
Oh, okay.
on her little window hammock. I'm sorry.
But people can see her on Instagram, right?
People can see her on Instagram. Far too many versions of her on Instagram. I've absolutely become that kind of cat parent. Although that said, I started with a cat this small, and now I have a cat about this big, and she's still going to
Yes.
keep growing. So I think chronicling her growth would be a good thing. At least, like, it'll make sure people know what happens when I mysteriously vanish one day, and it's because the cats have eaten me.
We should say they're Maine Coon cats, so they're supposed
They're
to
Maine
grow.
Coon cats.
to
They
be
are
like
supposed to grow.
cars.
They're not. Yes, they're not creepily large cats for no good reason whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. You're not foxes in disguise.
No, they're probably not foxes in disguise, but I worry if they're buck and echo instead. And there is a
Oh.
type.
That would
There
be
is
cool.
a kind. I can't remember which it is, but either the buck and echo and echo mata are necromancers who can puppet the dead, and one of them have the ability to kind of crawl into a human corpse and take it over
Mhm.
after killing the original owner. So
I think it's the necromata.
I hope that my girls are not that. Anyway, who will know? Will my cat eat my eyeballs? And other questions about dead body. So
Oh.
I actually don't mind the idea of my cats eating me if I randomly drop dead, because I assume it'll take at least 2-3 weeks before someone finds my body.
Mm.
And I don't want them to starve. Like, at the end of the day, meat is still meat, and those are obligate carnivores. Human beings have absolutely eaten each other in times of crisis. It's fine. My cats can eat my body. It'll be less for people to haul off later.
That's a
I
good
know no one asked
philosophy.
that question, but I like people know that.
It's good for half an hour. Should we open it up to questions from the
Yes,
viewers?
absolutely.
I'm sorry about my voice tonight.
No
And
worries.
how do we do this? Do we just start reading questions?
Mhm.
Where are some questions here?
I think you click on ask a question. I think I found it.
Oh, ask.
You know what I read? Yes.
Let's see. Oh,
Let's
okay. Here
see.
we go. Excuse me. Cass, food is a feature in your books. Shout out to Rupert Wong. What inspires you to include it?
Growing up in Malaysia, honestly, that is the sum of it. Southeast Asia is obsessed with food. People plan their dinners for the next day at breakfast. People talk endlessly about food. People want to taste. People want to experience. People want to try new things constantly, every day. I'm Hokkien by birth. And the way that you greet each other as Hokkien people is you say "jiape," And taba just means, have you eaten? And honest to God, if you say you have not eaten, the person who asks will drag you off to be fed. Like, food is a big thing. And it just didn't make sense to me not to have it in my works.
Mhm.
Because food grounds me. Food is society. Food is community. Food is love. Food is a conversation.
We have another question here. This is about nothing but Black and Teeth, but I want to open it up a little wider. Someone asked which scene or section was the most cathartic to write, but I think we should ask it about your whole body of work. Is there some thing you wrote where at the end you just felt like you'd exercised something?
Some breakable things. I wrote that one the morning I found out my father had died. I remember sitting down, just staring blankly into space for about 10 minutes and yanking my laptop out and just starting to write. And there's barely a plot to that, but I think it was the entirety of my heart and soul forced into a tiny little book, tiny little story. And at the end of it, I don't think I necessarily felt better, but I didn't feel so heavy with sadness.
Mm-hmm. Are there any Asian horror authors? Again, let's expand that. Are there any non-Western, white guy horror writers you'd like to talk about?
Ooh, I will have to think about this one for a second. Off the top of my head, I keep thinking of Stefania Malia Morris. She's only written a few stories to date, but her story Nightmare Bride Before Me is one of the most lush, most gorgeous things I've ever read in my life. And I'm just sitting here going, oh dear God, I hope you will eventually do a full novel. P. DeJelly Clark has only done one piece of horror, Ring Shout, but I hope he does more. The sheer snarling forwardness of his writing just works so well with the genre. And I guess my last recommend, I know they're not Asian authors, but I am thinking of my favorites instead right now. My last recommendation is actually Zine E. Rocklin's work. They have a novella coming out tomorrow called Flowers for the Sea. And it is this dark, growlingly angry piece of work. I've always loved their prose. Their prose is just incredibly muscular. It just gleams. And yeah, that book is going to be wonderful, and I think everyone should read it.
We talked recently about some Asian horror films.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything there? We talked about Pulse is one of the ones we talked about. The Japanese version versus the American version. And that was I thought that was an interesting bit of what the West had to do with an Eastern story.
They had to explain it. I think all the American remakes of Japanese horror all involved them trying to explain the reasons for the hauntings or giving them happy endings. Those are just two things that weird me out so much. The example that I always go to is the Payne brothers' The Eye. In the original movie, and I know this is a spoiler, but that movie came out in the 90s. I'm allowed to spoil it 30 years later. In the original movie, it ends with the girl who could see ghosts being blinded again. And she was just relieved as she had seen hundreds of people die in front of her, and all she wanted to do was never see it again. But the American version had a happy ending. They rescued a kid. They escaped the blast that defied the entirety of the Asian version. I don't know.
It seems kind of.
Western horror is weird, man.
We like our happy endings and
Or at least
explanations.
clean endings, I guess.
I guess clean. There you go. Good clean endings. And it's always bugged me that everything has to be explained in horror and fantasy. It just bugs me that you have to stop the story, explain your vampires or your ghosts.
Without giving away who told me this story, I have a friend who does like film work. Tell me there was this once where the executives went up to him while he was working on a horror thing. I was like, why did this person kill all these people? And they were like, because he's demonic in origin. Well, none of it says that. It's like, but his name says it. The whole premise is based on the fact he is a demon. We'll explain it. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's so weird.
It's like they have to come, books, and we have to come with a rule book, like a little D&D manual with them.
I wonder if it's just a mentality that's left over from the distant past when the West spends so much time trying to investigate foreign lands while, being kind of nervous and scared of everything. Maybe they always needed to make sense of it in context of themselves.
I always thought sometimes it's the toxic version of what we consider the scientific method, where we have to dismantle everything, look at all the little pieces, and then put them together logically and give everybody the rules on like how everything works. With forgetting the philosophical side that eased into the original scientific method.
Society is weird.
Yeah.
As a general whole.
There was something about, can you give us a tease about the story that you two are working on together or have worked on together? First, I'm moving around. My cat is trying to eat my coffee and I don't want to knock it over.
Oh no. How will you tell them? You're better at selling the collaboration than I am.
My way of describing it is Atomic Blonde meets Hellraiser.
It has the drugs. It has a psychic detective. It has a lot of gore. So much gore.
I think of it in terms of Junji Ito levels of gore.
Yeah, that was only the first draft. I cannot wait to go through it again and put even more entrails into that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, second draft is for entrails.
As many as second stuff in there.
Yes.
Quite literally.
Let me look up these newer questions. I saw you reading a chapter in New York City. It seems like an eternity ago. Has the book changed since then?
Only a little bit.
Yeah. Do you hope in-person book events are going to come back?
I think they asked, so you see in-person books coming back? In-person book events coming back?
Yeah.
I think so. I think they're going to come back because a lot of people do enjoy like being in proximity of people they like and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, or at least I hope, we'll always have a hybrid solution as well, now that people know how easy it is to make events more accessible to everyone.
Mm-hmm. Do you look forward to being with people again, like at cons or readings or anything? I have mixed feelings.
Depends on how well ventilated the venue is.
Yes.
I'm reasonably acrobatic. If it is very cramped, I will crawl out from a ceiling vent.
Mm-hmm. I'm taking a look. Let's see. Creature. No, we're not going to do that one. Would you say your emotional state? You mentioned that your writing Nothing But Blackened Teeth was in a dark period. Would you say your emotional state always influences your writing?
Yes.
Yeah, I would think so.
How about you? Do you come from it in a dispassionate way?
No, it's always what I'm feeling at the moment, whether it's happy or angry or confused or sad.
I think that's true for almost all writers, no?
I think so.
I'm sure there are some people out there who can carefully plot their way out of things without needing like the drive of rage or something like that.
Yeah, but I always wonder if those stories are drier, or if they have to be written in the second draft, that you can't be that dispassionate in the end.
I don't know. I think there's an audience for everything, definitely.
Well, that's true. That's true.
I don't
Is this
think we got
always
time
intended to be a
for-
novella?
Yes,
You like novellas?
absolutely. I like novellas. I come from a journalistic background, so I tend to like writing very small, terse things. And novellas are this happy place between a proper, legit book and a short story.
Mhm.
But I think I'm slowly wandering towards the territory of novels. Every time I start a new thing, I realize I'm 5,000 words in. I'm not even done with the intro. I'm like, wait a second. This isn't how that works.
Yeah. What was the
Is
first
anger
time
better? Huh?
I'm sorry.
I'm peeking at, I think, what will be the last question of the night.
Is there one that you want to choose?
Yes, is anger a better inspiration than sadness? I think so. At least for me, rage, there's a cleanness to rage, at least how it works in my head. And the momentum is stronger, and it doesn't feel like there's a knife twisting through me, whereas sadness always feels like a hook dug into my breastbone and something's going tug, 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 tug until I'm done with the book. Oh, Paula asks, is there an accolade either of you would like to achieve in your career? You first.
An accolade? Like an award or something?
Um,
I guess so.
Maybe?
I love the Stoker Awards. I really respect them a lot.
Same here. Either the Bram Stoker Awards or the Clark Award. And
Mhm.
like, I don't even want to win them. I just want to be on the nomination list for either of those, the Bram Stoker especially.
Yeah, the Stoker's one. World Fantasy Award is pretty cool. I
It is.
like that one too. Now that it's not that hideous bust anymore. For people who don't know, it used to be a Gay Wilson parody of Lovecraft as the old trophy, and Lovecraft is problematic. Plus, I like Gay Wilson's work, but that thing was flat out ugly.
I think Lovecraft would have been insulted with it.
Yeah.
Like, I do mean it legitly, not even jokingly. That was not a flattering rendition of the man. I know he wasn't terribly attractive to begin with, but it's like, now that is just kind of, oh God, I would be so sad.
Well, maybe unintentionally he got at the inner Lovecraft, the creepier, nastier part of him. That's why it looks that way.
I have never thought of that.
Yeah, I
Now I have to sit with the concept for a while. But yeah,
Do you have any more?
I think we do not have questions. If there are no more questions, I think we are ready to
Yeah,
wrap this
that
up.
was the final question. So I want to thank everyone for joining so very, very much, and a huge, huge thank you to Richard for being an amazing moderator and for great questions, and for Cassandra, one, for writing 2 fabulous books we got to celebrate with you this year. And everyone, this beautiful, beautiful book, Nothing But Blackened Teeth, is going to be out and on shelves tomorrow. And I have no reservations. You should go and read it because it's fabulous. So no to read or not to read. To read is definitely the one for this. And there will be the purchase book button down below for all of you. The really cool pop socket It is worth clicking on the purchase book button, also just to see the amazing promo graphic where literally this
I
woman,
love it.
she is holding a cell phone with the pop socket, which made me like just crack up laughing when I opened up the email. It made my day. But yes, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you all next time, and a very, very happy book birthday to Nothing But Blackened Teeth. Goodbye, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.